Welcome to our comprehensive coverage of the rapidly escalating conflict fundamentally reshaping the geopolitical architecture of the Middle East. The entire region appears to be engulfed in a widening theater of war, with severe strategic ramifications playing out in real time. Visuals from this morning show heavy smoke rising over Beirut as Israeli forces continuously strike entrenched militant targets within the Dahiya neighborhood. The ripple effects of this escalation are reaching far beyond immediate borders. In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the United States Embassy was struck by 2 drones. According to the Saudi Defense Ministry, the facility caught fire, but thanks to swift evacuation protocols, 0 injuries were reported. However, the human cost of this broader military campaign is mounting, marked by the tragic loss of 6 United States service members. Despite these losses, the American military apparatus is showing absolutely no signs of deceleration. Newly released operational imagery confirms the total destruction of an Iranian naval vessel, demonstrating the sheer volume of sophisticated firepower being deployed in this coordinated operation. On the strategic timeline, the United States President indicated that the military is currently operating ahead of schedule. However, he formally cautioned that the kinetic phase of this conflict could extend significantly beyond the initial projection of 4 to 5 weeks. On the ground in Tel Aviv, the reality of this sustained engagement is highly visible. Multiple ballistic missile interceptions are a daily occurrence as the Iranian regime maintains its aerial barrage. Simultaneously, the tactical situation on the northern front is shifting dramatically. Overnight, Israeli defense forces advanced a few hundred meters into southern Lebanon. Military command emphasizes this is strictly a limited defensive maneuver designed to establish a tactical buffer zone and prevent cross-border incursions by armed groups. Former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant summarized the gravity of this moment in a recent statement, asserting that the actions taken in the coming weeks will fundamentally dictate the security environment of the Middle East for the coming decades. He stressed the absolute necessity of completing the military objective, noting that this disruption presents an unprecedented window of change for the Iranian civilian population. Meanwhile, regional allies in the Gulf face a growing threat vector, necessitating a unified and heavily assisted defensive network to intercept incoming projectiles. From Washington, the political parameters of this war are being strictly defined. The vice president clarified that the current administration will not drag the country into a multi-year quagmire lacking a clear exit strategy. The absolute red line and primary objective remain singular, preventing the adversary from obtaining a nuclear weapon and securing a binding, long-term commitment that their nuclear infrastructure will never be secretly rebuilt. The Israeli Prime Minister echoed this urgency, revealing intelligence suggesting the adversary was merely weeks away from burying their nuclear and missile manufacturing program so deeply underground that they would be entirely immune to conventional military strike. This imminent threshold is exactly what triggered the current preemptive campaign. When analyzing the militant capabilities in Lebanon, the logistical challenge for the Israeli Air Force is immense. Current intelligence estimates place their operational arsenal at roughly 11 to 12,000 rockets and missiles, with approximately 6,000 of those within direct range of major Israeli population centers. While this represents only 20% of their pre-war stockpile, neutralizing the remaining hardware requires pinpoint precision. These organizations have spent decades heavily embedding their military infrastructure deep beneath civilian areas in southern Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley, and the capital. After 2 years of continuous border friction following the events of October 7, the ground threat remains highly potent. These specialized units possess advanced anti-tank guided missiles that pose an immediate, daily risk to border communities. This continuous threat model explains exactly why over 60,000 Israeli civilians from the north remain displaced from their homes, unable to safely return. Looking eastward to the primary missile threat, intelligence assessments estimate the current ballistic inventory in Tehran sits between 1,500 and 2,500 operational units. Their current tactical doctrine involves launching massive, synchronized swarms of these missiles simultaneously. This deliberate saturation tactic is explicitly designed to overwhelm the sophisticated, multi-layered Israeli and American air and missile defense network. However, launching heavy ordnance at such a high frequency raises a critical logistical question. Can their industrial base sustain this rapid rate of fire? If the conflict stretches across the projected 4 to 5 week window, defense analysts strongly suggest that these highly advanced ballistic stockpiles will face severe depletion, ultimately crippling their long-range strike capability and permanently altering the balance of power in the region. Welcome to our comprehensive global security update. The current government in Tehran is on a trajectory to exhaust its supply of missile and launch systems long before the combined military campaign by the United States and Israel reaches its conclusion. Allied forces are systematically dismantling these launch sites to neutralize the primary strategic threat posed to Israel and neighboring Gulf nations. Although the adversary still possesses a formidable arsenal of shorter-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and unmanned aerial vehicles aimed at U.S. forces and Gulf partners, crippling their primary launch infrastructure effectively strips away their most significant offensive capability. This strategic degradation grants American and Israeli forces substantially greater operational freedom across the theater to systematically remove this overarching threat. At this critical juncture, all military intelligence suggests there is absolutely no indication that a large-scale deployment of ground infantry will cross into Iranian territory. The logistical posture required for a massive land invasion simply does not exist in the region right now. Instead, the military projection relies overwhelmingly on massive air and naval supremacy. Meanwhile, the Israeli government recognizes that the immediate danger has not subsided. They continue to urge their civilian population to remain in close proximity to bomb shelters, clearly communicating that completely neutralizing this multifaceted threat could stretch into a matter of days, if not several weeks. In a major operational development, the United States Central Command has formally confirmed that American forces successfully obliterated the command and control facilities of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, alongside critical regime air defense network. Furthermore, newly declassified operational footage confirms a devastating naval strike. United States forces have successfully destroyed 11 Iranian naval vessels operating in the Gulf of Oman, effectively eliminating the entirety of the regime's naval presence in that specific maritime corridor. Think of this as systematically closing down the adversary's ability to threaten key global shipping lanes and maritime choke points. Simultaneously, heavy-by-1 bombers have successfully degraded the adversary's long-range ballistic missile capabilities. In a recent public address, the President of the United States provided a crucial update on the operational timeline. He stated that the U.S. military, possessing overwhelming global superiority, is operating substantially ahead of its initial time projection. The original strategic estimate allocated 4 weeks to fully terminate the opposing military leadership structure. According to the executive branch, that specific objective was achieved in approximately 1 hour, placing the entire operation drastically ahead of schedule. While a massive ground invasion is entirely off the table, the commander-in-chief has not completely ruled out a highly specialized, limited deployment of ground troops. Strategic analysts suggest that if boots were to touch the ground, it would be a strictly limited presence operating on a very tight, temporary timeframe. The primary objective of such a tactical maneuver would be to establish a temporary security bridge to facilitate a transition in governance. There are ongoing high-level discussions regarding key exiled figures, such as Reza Pahlavi, potentially stepping in to lead a transitional authority. This interim structure would theoretically pave the way for a government that is amenable to regional stability, acceptable to Israeli security concerns, and willing to negotiate a comprehensive nuclear agreement, a diplomatic path the current establishment consistently rejected. Defense officials have essentially outlined 4 distinct operational objectives for this historic campaign. First, systematically dismantle the naval fleet to ensure the Strait of Hormuz remains open, guaranteeing the free flow of international oil. That specific phase is currently marked as complete. Second, degrade and eliminate all ballistic missile capabilities, a massive undertaking that is well on its way. Third, systematically dismantle all nuclear research and enrichment facilities, which remains an ongoing and highly complex operation. Fourth, dismantle the extensive network of armed militant factions operating throughout the broader region. Once these 4 fundamental pillars are achieved, a limited troop presence could theoretically prevent an even more hardline military faction from seizing total control in the resulting power vacuum. The president recently issued a stark warning that operations will continue to escalate, stating that the big one is coming. Military analysts interpret this as a clear directive to continuously target heavily fortified subterranean command bunkers housing the senior leadership, alongside the deeply buried ballistic missile infrastructure. This modern military campaign is heavily driven by unprecedented technological integration. Massive streams of data are being continuously collected by low Earth orbit satellites, satellite, processed rapidly through EYI and machine learning algorithms, and instantly relayed to strike platform. The sheer scale of this coordinated assault is immense, utilizing by 1 and by 52 bombers, carrier strike group, and Tomahawk missiles launched from submerged submarines. This relentless, high-tech military pressure is fully expected to continue seamlessly into the coming week.